what isn't toxic. Like
Yes.
assume everything is,
Yeah.
but what isn't?
Totally.
Yes. And also that mindset of it's interesting on social media how there's been so much good spotlight being pushed on, you know, seed oils, ultra processed food, et cetera. But it's like just the environment that we live in, perfection isn't the end goal. And you see a lot of people where their whole focus is avoiding exposures.
Yeah.
And the theme that we've explored more is just this concept of resilience of like, you're not going to be perfect. Like, let's really invest in our health so that like, if you are exposed to like polyesters or plastic water bottles, like you're going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
the body's also really resilient too.
I love that relaxed mindset. It's not like a relaxed mindset out of passivity, but there's proactiveness. We're going to do the best we can without ruining our lives through mental stress about what's around, but we're also not going to ignore it. And I've been really into health and nutrition for like 25 years. Since I was 18, that's what I started off doing before comedy. And I think a lot of people go through phases, and there's a phase usually in the first chunk of like getting into it where you get obsessive compulsive, where you become a control freak, you become a pain in the ass to everybody else around you. I'm not going to eat there, or I need to have a 30-minute conversation with the waiter and instruct the chefs how to do something different, or I'll be dehydrated instead of drinking the only water available. And what I realized about myself is if I look at myself as a holistic being, which I think we are, body, mind, it's all connected, how much negativity how much net negativity versus positive progression am I giving myself? And I think like, cool, I was making great strides, living 100% clean in all the ways, living like a monk and eating like a monk. But then the stress I would feel by obsessing about it, worrying about it, social withdrawal, because like there's some things that are a social disconnect. I looked at it and realized I think I'm in the net negative right now. I need to loosen up, and you know, so much about life, maybe everything, like it's you don't find the way forward in the extremes, worry about nothing or worry about everything. I think there truly is a balance in between.
Do you really think that there's a balance? I feel like our small subsect of crazy people like has to go through that rite of passage. Do you think that you have to go through that rite of passage of like being crazy in order to be healthy?
Oh yeah, I do. I think you have to find your own way. Like if someone walked in this room and we could like impart all our years of experience onto them, it wouldn't really mean much, because they need to find their own journey so that when they kind of settle into their path of what's sustainable for them, they have to know this is my path. I think we're all delusional, just like we're told money can't make you happy.
Yeah.
We've all heard that before we had any more than $1,000 in our bank account, but we're all like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I gotta see. I think it can make me happy. So I do think we have to kind of do the young man's foolish things in order to not act like a wise person, but actually become a little bit more of a wiser person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost a good thing to like push it to the extreme and then taper back, because I feel so many people in modern society are wired to probably operate at like 10 to 20% of your maximum potential.
Yeah.
So it's probably better to err on the side of like push it and then taper back and find that healthy balance, right?
I would agree. Yeah, society doesn't need to be told like try less hard. That's going to be better.
Yes.
No, go for it. Try to be out of balance.
Yes.
That's going to help push them into balance.
Yeah. I mean, you saw that a lot in the beginning of COVID, which is probably a really good point to start to dig into some stuff. Is I remember it's wild to put yourself back into 2020. And I remember seeing so much content on social media. Yeah. Around like, this is such a stressful time. Like, don't worry, like order food, watch Netflix. And I felt like so many people were collectively like, now I have this societal sign to kind of give in to all these like inner feelings that I've wanted to do, but it was never really societally accepted until 2020, which is like super interesting how we're just so wired to latch on to those feelings, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're wired to latch on to feelings of being a victim. And what COVID wanted us to be was victims in all the ways. And one of the ways that was expressed is like, yeah, life is really stressful. Order the stuff. We'll keep the liquor stores open. Make sure you're drinking to feel better about yourself. So I think when we're not like using our own really conscious North Star as our compass, the influences of society, including all the things with COVID, they push you into the role of being a victim. Is it designed that way, or is that just the path of least resistance? I don't know, but you can't be a victim and a master at the same time. And I think COVID taught a lot of people to be victims, whether it's victim of a virus or victim of your own life. It was a good time.
Yeah, it like you were saying, Brad, it kind of gave people like an easy way out to just kind of be like, oh, well, you know, this is just happening.
Yeah.
And play that victim card. But you were one of the few people who I feel like turned up the boldness scale. You were just like doubling down on putting out content and speaking the truth. Was there like a did you have a thought or like a turning point where you're like, oh, I really need to actually speak up because other people aren't?
Yeah, I did. You know, for the first few weeks of COVID, I thought I was just doing what I normally do, which usually means I'm using my comedy to point out egotistical nature in people in different realms in one way or another. And then it's like, okay, now there's COVID. Look at what they're doing on the news, some of this tyranny stuff. Like, okay, I'll just do the same thing, but at that. And then fairly early on, I put out a video called What It's Like to Believe Everything the TV Tells You, or Everything the News Tells You. And to my surprise, that one went pretty damn viral. And that's when I started seeing, because there was a lot of backlash. There were smear articles written about me based on that video. Some of the comments, I mean, overwhelming support, yet some of the comments you could see, like, people are really against someone who's speaking out for freedom and suggesting that there can be lies and corruption coming from the news. People are outraged that if you call a pharmaceutical company profit motivated and potentially corrupt, the same pharmaceutical company that has paid the largest criminal fine in U.S. history, $2.3 billion, which literally makes them a criminal organization, if you suggest they might not be completely altruistic, you get backlash. So that video helped me wake up like, okay, there's a fork in the road here. I can do the thing that a lot of people have said you never do. You never divide your audience. You never get into politics. And like freedom became a political issue. It's like, well, this is my number one value. I need to speak on its behalf. So there was that fork in the road choice, play it safe or be true to myself and play it dangerously. And it wasn't really a choice. It's like, I can't betray myself. I can't not follow my heart. And that definitely made me more bold and more fierce because there was more resistance than usual. You know, cancel culture was relatively new on the scene. And it's like, well, this cancer, it might kill people. Now we look at cancel culture and realize, no, it only works if you consent to it. But the interesting thing is, you know, just like in the gym, the muscle can only be as strong as the weight is heavy. And I found having resistance to what I was saying in the beginning of COVID made me a lot stronger. It made me a lot more true to myself. And if you look at like an archetypal example of this, Jordan Peterson, that dude has gotten way more bold with what he has to say over the past 4 years. They try to cancel him all the time. They try to shut down his live events. They try to protest him. They smear him. He only gets stronger because of, I believe it's because if someone's acting on principle, if you resist them, one, they're a principled person. They're not going to abandon it because you intimidate them. They will only get stronger because now you are the resistance, making the muscle of them stronger. So I'm no Jordan Peterson, but that same sort of pattern, I think, was at work with me and making me more bold with what I had to say during COVID.